Hello, everyone. We are about to get started. I just want to make sure everything is working because, okay, so we've got a few people here. So it is that time. Let's get started. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. I am Dr. Joanna Broussard, a qualitative consultant for Statistics Solutions, and this webinar is on surviving your dissertation. We are recording this and we will send it to everyone within 48 hours usually of the webinar being concluded, but I have both the chat window and the Q&A window open, so you can ask your questions there. Ask them as you have them so that way you don't forget them. I will endeavor to answer them when I see them. If not, I will get to them and answer them at the end. So let us begin. So again, this is surviving your dissertation. We will be going over how to choose a topic, what counts as a study, knowing what's required of you, time management, staying focused or staying aligned to your dissertation, working with your chair, perseverance and through the process, handling stress, and some pro tips right at the end. So first, let's talk about choosing a topic. The first thing people always think about is, oh, choose something you're interested in. Choose something that you are passionate about, because if you choose something that you're passionate about, something that you care about, it will make it easier to sustain the momentum, the focus, the discipline, and the drive needed to go through the dissertation process. Because writing a dissertation is a lot of work. It's a long process. It's anywhere between, depending on the program, normally it's 1 to 2 years. Some people may take a little bit longer for various reasons, but it's a lot of work. Finding a topic, finding all the literature, learning you can, deciding on how you're going to study it. But the first thing you should do is think about something you are interested in. From your first semester in grad school, start thinking in broad terms about topics. And then as you go through your coursework, you'll start to search for and think about research problems. As you read more in your classes, you'll see what people are talking about. You'll see what they're not talking about. You'll find gaps. You'll find suggestions for further studies. You'll see where you can fit, and you'll begin the process of maybe narrowing down I want to study this. I want to study epic poetry I want to study Anglo-Saxon Germanic epic poetry, or I want to study mental health I want to study depression, or I want to study complex PTSD from major weather-related trauma like hurricanes or typhoons. You'll start to narrow it down so you have a better idea of what you want your dissertation to be about. And then remember, your study can't save the world. You're not going to fix an entire problem, but you can make a dent. You can move people's knowledge forward 1 to 2 steps, and it may be able to help some people, even if it doesn't completely fix a problem. So this is where, when you're picking your topic, you do need to think about basically what your interests are and how you can sustain that over the course of the years of coursework. A few other things it's good to think about at this point. Whenever you're taking a class, think about how you can work your seminar papers toward advancing your topic of research. One of my professors, Dr. Graham Bodie, always said, never do anything for free. Always try to get a seminar paper to become a conference talk, a journal article you could have published, or something that moves your dissertation forward. Always work toward that goal. So, what is a study? A study is a focused, detailed investigation and analysis of a subject or a situation. Are you doing a study on the performance of masculinity through boasting in Old Norse sagas? Are you doing a study on the efficacy of a particular pharmaceutical or holistic treatment for a particular disease or condition? You were investigating and analyzing something. It is not a research paper, and it is not an argumentative paper in the sense that you understood that as an undergraduate. You are trying to conduct new research and find information. You are trying to find data and knowledge that, depending on whether you're quantitative or qualitative, what your findings are will look different. But you are trying to understand something, a subject, a phenomenon, a practice, whether it be why people in certain situations pronounce things differently, a linguistic study. Maybe it's sociolinguistic, and so it's connected to social class or social mobility. Maybe it's how we can reintroduce moribund languages to speakers, so that way a once dead language can, or a dying language like Hebrew or Irish, can flourish again. Maybe you're looking at best practices for treatment, or how do therapists go about providing the best treatment for teenagers dealing with unsupportive families and their mental health. Maybe it is a quantitative study dealing with efficacy of pharmaceuticals. These are, what you produce will look differently. And you need to understand the components of the study. You need to understand how they fit together. And all of these will be different. First, qualitative versus quantitative versus mixed methods. These will require different things, and they will look different. We do offer specific webinars and assistance on each of these types of areas. So these are things that you need to think about as you understand, well, what is a study? Is it just looking at something? No, it is focused, it is detailed, and it is systematic. So once you understand that, you need to know what's required. Early on, obtain your school's dissertation template or guidelines. Not every school has them, but always ask your graduate school if they have a dissertation template. If not, ask your department if they have a dissertation template. That way you can start to familiarize yourself with the components, with what's expected, with what you need to do. And that will help allow you to plan. At the bare minimum, most dissertations will require an introductory chapter where you talk about what you're going to study. You present the research problem, you present why it's a problem, you present your research questions, you introduce us to the project, then a review of the relevant literature. What are the major seminal studies on this topic? What are the more recent studies on this topic? Excuse me. Where is the conversation going? Pointing out the gaps in the literature and how your study fits into how we as a scholarly community are talking about this topic at present. Then you'll have a chapter discussing your methods. What approach did you take? Why did you choose this approach? What is your specific methodology for how you're going to collect your data, how you're going to analyze your data? Why did you choose these methods and processes? Let's talk about data reliability, data validity, credibility of research. When you're dealing with human subjects or human participants, how are we protecting their confidentiality? What are our data security measures? And so on and so forth. Then you'll have a chapter presenting your results, and that will look different depending on your method, your theory, your data itself, and what you found. But there will be certain sections in that's expected, so familiarize yourself with that. And then sort of a conclusions or discussion chapter where you analyze the findings. What did you find? What did it mean? And what does this suggest for further research? If you can't get access to, maybe your school doesn't have a template, find a couple of dissertations that from recent graduates who have done similar things. Maybe they've used a similar research method. Maybe they've used a similar theoretical framework. Maybe they've studied a topic that's adjacent to yours. Find some of their dissertations, look at what they did structurally, not just for the but this is where learning to read structurally, learning to see what sections, what subsections, what was successful and what was expected. So you know what's expected of you, so you can start planning, because writing your dissertation will take time. Writing each section, each chapter takes time. And you never know how much time it's going to take. So you want to be able to budget accordingly. And then familiarize yourself with your role as a learner and what is expected of you while you're going through coursework. What is expected in terms of how you learn to write problem statements and research questions, how you learn to approach critiquing secondary sources that you're using in literature reviews for seminar papers and to support the claims you're making. What is expected of you in terms of how often you meet with, say, your chair, how often you get documents to your entire committee, how active are you expected to be in committee selection or things of that nature. All of this will vary from study to study, but it's good to sort of know early on what your department, what your chair, and what your project may demand of you. So keep that in mind. And then let's talk about time management. We've got a lot of demands on us as adults, from our own physical health, our own mental health, our employment situation, family, if we have a spouse and or children, pets, all of these things happen and they take time. School, if you're a full-time student, if you have an assistantship that requires either lab work, assist grading for another faculty member, maybe you're professor of record and you have to deal with classes. Maybe you've got a full-time job outside of your coursework. Maybe you're dealing with a major illness for yourself or your family. There are a lot of things that pull on our time. Life never takes a break. And so we have to think about how we manage our time, because It is a finite resource. If you've been on any internet writing communities, you've probably heard something along the lines of, you should always be writing, write every day. And it's easy to feel that way, but a better way to handle the stress of writing in a way that's not overwhelming is to schedule routine writing and work times. And keep those times, but schedule, like, say, okay, so Mondays I can schedule between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. to get some work done on my dissertation, whether that be writing the next section, whether it be searching for literature and creating an annotated bibliography, whether it be outlining a chapter. I have this amount of time. Here are the tasks I feel I can get done, or I can at least start in this time. But maybe you can't work on Tuesday. Maybe you can only work Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from, say, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., but you have a little bit more time on Saturday and Sunday. It's better to have a routine in place, so that way you know, okay, this time I need to write. This time I need to research. This time I need to edit. Having a routine is better than feeling like you always have to be working, because the always have to be working is stressful. Set up a routine. You might want to find a planner that helps you to remember as you get used to it. Bullet journaling, I know, is popular with a lot of people, because if you don't finish a task, there's a specific framework for moving that task forward. But bullet journaling, having a planner, some sort of a structure that helps you keep yourself moving, helps keep you motivated, and helps keep you accountable to yourself. Because when you have a project that, oh, the dissertation is due in a year and a half or in 2 years, that's a long period of time. And so breaking it down into manageable chunks is essential. So we do have to think about, with that, staying focused. As I said, it's easy to lose focus when you have only a big project that's due a year from now, a year and a half from now. So this is why you want to keep yourself focused, why you want to choose a topic first before you start doing a lot of the work, because topic drift can happen, and we should avoid topic drift. Topic drift is when, oh, I'm going to start talking about, say, the use of alliteration in early Germanic poetry. Well, but that's getting into heroic epics. I'm going to talk about dragons and killing dragons and fighting them. It's connected, and you can see how it's connected, but it's moving you away from the original topic. And it's also, that leads to the topic drift, is sort of what happens when we go down those associative rabbit holes. This topic leads me to this topic, which leads 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 to, how am I talking about this now, which is way over here? And to an outside observer, it looks like you've gone way off topic in an illogical manner, but you see your thought process. We have to avoid that, and we have to rein ourselves in, which is why, once we've picked a topic, choosing our research problem, I am going to look at this particular problem, this particular issue, this particular situation, and having good, well-written, specific research questions and a research purpose. These are the spine of our study. This is the center of it that everything else needs to connect back to. What is the problem we are addressing? I haven't talked about my own dissertation. The problem I was responding to was America was in a situation where 22.8 veterans were taking their own lives every day on average. And so that was my problem. This is an issue. This is a massive number of people who are choosing to end their life for various reasons, and many of them it was connected to mental health struggles or other struggles related to mental health issues and physical health issues brought about by their time in service. So clearly there was a lack of care that was going into it. And so again, here was the problem. My big research question as I looked at what was being talked about related to soldiers, veterans, and mental health was, do the ways in which we talk about militaristic heroism impact the likelihood of veterans seeking treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder and suicidal ideation after their term of service ends? That was my overarching RQ. And then I broke that down into smaller research questions for specifically how do political discourses contribute, then how do popular discourses, how do professional psychological discourses contribute, and how do veterans themselves talk about suicidal ideation through their own suicide notes. So those were the questions that guided my study. And while I could go off in so many directions, and there were plenty of rabbit holes to go down, having those clear questions always helped bring it back. And with editing, clear problem statement, clear questions, and a clear purpose help cut when you find that you've got too much. It's better to have too much than not enough, but when you're looking for what you can trim away, what doesn't get me to the root of my study? What doesn't directly connect to these questions, to this problem, to this purpose? And that is something to think about, because it's easy to lose focus. It's easy to go off topic with a project that is this large. And so that is really why having a good, productive working relationship with your chair is essential. Now, before we talk into the 3 big bullet points of professionalism, respect, and consistency, I recognize that every chair advisee relationship will be unique, and it will be something that we can't always plan for. Life events happen to us that we don't know about happening. Life events will happen to our chair. And each chair has a different set of expectations, but we do have a webinar, and we can help with on choosing your committee and working with them. So I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but I do want to say that when you're thinking about selecting a chair, think about, among other things, how much they know about your topic, about your chosen research methods, your chosen theory. Think about how frequently they will want to meet with you. Are they someone who will expect weekly updates, monthly updates? Maybe you submit stuff at the beginning or end of a semester and they'll get it back to you at the beginning of the next semester or the end of this semester. Depending on what they expect and what you respond to, some people work very well with weekly updates and that level of micromanagement. Others do not. So think about that as you choose someone to work with, because how we respond to someone else's advising and working style can set up how easy it is to handle professionalism, respect, and consistency. But always be professional. At this level, you are a junior colleague. You are someone who is in the field but doesn't have a lot of experience. And this person hopefully will be a good mentor, a good guide who will be helping you move along whatever your educational and professional goals are. Be professional, because this is someone with whom you could have a working relationship with for decades to come. Be respectful. They are people just like you, and life happens to them. Sometimes we don't always communicate in ways that are clear, in ways that get our goal across. And so understanding that we need to be respectful of others, of their efforts, of their time. Sometimes it's easy, especially with electronic communication, to go, oh, I can email my major professor, my chair at 11:30 at night because I'm thinking about this right now. And forget that they may be asleep, they may be doing something with family, they may be dealing with some other issue. And so they don't respond immediately. I know that, it's email communication is great because it's instantaneous, but something to think about: when you're always connected and always switched on, it can create faster burnout. Not everyone responds to emails immediately. When I was a professor, I would always put in my syllabi that I do not respond to emails after 5 p.m. on weekdays and at all on weekends. So that way students would know that if you get to me outside of business hours, you may have to wait either until the next business day or until the next Monday. So be respectful of time. When you have a meeting with your chair, have an agenda. Be on topic, be on time, make it productive, and be consistent. Turn in work consistently when you're expected to. When you have meetings, show up for them with regularity. There's nothing that's more frustrating for both the chair you're working with and for you if meetings are not happening. You schedule a meeting. If you have to cancel or reschedule, please be certain to let the other person know. Be on time. All of these things are connected, and yes, that goes for your chair as well. Your chair should be professional. Your chair should be respectful. Your chair should be consistent. But sadly, you can only control your side of it. So be certain that you are professional. Come to meetings prepared with what you have to turn in, with questions. If you feel that some of the feedback you've gotten is incorrect, bring evidence to support your claim. These are things that you need to think about as you're working with someone, because professionalism can go a long way into helping that relationship continue. Respect is something that will help them see you as someone who will move forward, and consistency. If you're not being consistent, if you're not doing what's expected of you, it's going to stress both of you out. And if you get stressed, it becomes easier to continue to spiral away from what you know that you're capable of doing. And so remember that as you work with a chair, and remember, chairs are people too. They have time, and this is a major undertaking. So you need to be able to persevere. This is a process. It's not something that you're going to see and start with quickly. It takes time. You have to, and it's a lot of waiting, right? If you've done any type of work on it already, I don't know where anyone who's here is in the process, but you submit something and you have to wait for feedback. This goes back to the understanding that your chair and your committee are people too, and they have other obligations. Feedback can take time. I know some chairs can get feedback back within a week. Some can take a bit longer. And it depends on each project. It depends on what the project needs. It depends on what's going on in the chair's life. Any other classes they're teaching, other advisees who need potentially more hands-on assistance, their own research, their own family, other things going on in their life. So feedback and turnaround are not monolithic. So let's see. Oh, I think we have someone from Marlon. Here we go. I just see something. What are some of the strategies to deal with setback and discouragement? That is a phenomenal question. I'm glad I saw that, because setbacks happen, and it will depend on the nature of the setback. If it's, say, your physical or mental health, that's going to be dealing with those healthcare providers and what they suggest for that, and then having an open conversation with your chair and your committee and your department about what this is going to mean for your journey. If, say, the setback is, research is taking a lot longer, then you may have to scale back what you have planned, but always discuss that with your chair, because that may involve more submission to the IRB. The IRB process can take time. The IRB only meets once a quarter, and in most places, and so that means if I submit early February, I might be sitting on my heels until April. And that's stressful and that's nerve-wracking. Now, so setbacks, I always advise communication with your chair, because as someone who's gone through this process, they can help you, and they probably know a few things for the individual situation. Discouragement, that's a big one, because when you get discouraged, it's easier and easier to put things off, right? It's easier to just push things back. I'm not going to do it. And using my own journey, because that is really one of the few that I can talk about with any confidence. When I got to my last bit, the stuff on how do veterans perceive this and their mental health and assistance and the act of suicide, because I didn't plan to discuss suicide notes, but 217 families reached out to me and emailed me a suicide note from one of their loved ones who had taken their own life. And so because the families trusted me, I felt compelled to do it. But when you read things like that, the discouragement and the it's too big, this whole project is too big, my study was too big, or the importance of this is too big. Thump. And the thump is meant to mirror the just sort of slumping down in your chair or on your sofa and just feeling that weight, that heaviness. It's normal. It's normal to feel discouraged because this is a big deal. Oh, of course, I'm more than happy to share because it's something that we don't like to talk about. And one thing I've noticed is in graduate school, we like to put on that mask, right? Everything is perfect. My research is going swimmingly. We all know the joking meme of we don't ask a grad student how their dissertation is coming because we don't want to be reminded that ours is probably just as bad. And if someone shares, they're probably going to put their best face forward. One thing that helped, and this is something, if you can, find a buddy in your program, and it's scary to say this, but be willing to be vulnerable. My first semester, a really good friend of mine, and he and I will both talk about this to this day. This was like in 2008, 2009. We were taking a really dense class on Russian linguistic theory. It was part of the program. And everyone in the class acted like they they understood everything perfectly. And we were having drinks one day at a local watering hole, and I just looked at him and I said, my exact words, and he remembers this. So I said, why the fuck is everyone pretending like they know what the hell's going on? And it was at that moment that we became friends, because both of us were like, wait, you're willing to be honest that you don't know what's going on? That you're lost too? That you don't have perfect knowledge? That vulnerability, which is scary, is what helped us handle it, because then we became each other's encouragement buddy. I would advise trying, if you can find someone that you can trust to be that way, to be open with. If you could, a good therapist, someone to help you talk through the fear and the anxiety, because if you don't have anxiety going into the process, you will likely develop anxiety during it, because there's a lot of stress. And you're going to realize just how much of it you can't control. And that's terrifying. And so that's part of understanding the process. You have to give up a lot of control and spend a lot of time waiting on other people to do things for you, whether it be respond to surveys, whether it be schedule interviews, whether it be give you feedback on drafts. You have to wait. And that's terrifying, because you're in limbo and you don't know. And then let's talk about comments briefly. Comments from your chair and from your committee are there to help you. Many of them are going to be probably suggestions, or, hey, I know you understand this, but remember that not everyone who reads this is going to have spent as much time with your project, with this theory, with this method, with your data as you have. So please make sure that you clearly explaining this to the people who could read this. Please, sometimes you understand something, and I know one of the hardest things for me to get over as a writer academically was I always assumed that everyone in the academy who was reading my writing knew more than I did. Many of them do, some of them don't. But when you are writing, this is where you show off what you know. Don't feel like you're boring them or you're patronizing them or you're talking down to them. This is where you get a chance to show off how much you know and how well you understand the topic. One sort of a fun, it was a frustratingly fun activity for my students. I would have them pick a theoretical or a methodological topic, and then I would have them write an essay where they explain it to a 6-year-old. Why would I do that? Because if you can explain something complex to someone whose brain is still developing, to a child, then you know that you understand it. And also, if it's not clear, a child is the most honest person in the world, and they'll tell you they don't get it. They will tell you what they don't understand. And so if you can, bribe a child with pizza who's maybe a friend's child or your own child to say, hey, let me explain this to you. See if you understand it. That's something to think about, because comments are there to make our writing better. Sometimes comments are not helpful. I'm working with a client right now whose chair provides clients like, there are multiple grammatical errors. Find them and fix them. Well, if I don't know where they are, if the client doesn't know where they are, it's hard to find them. Sometimes comments show that the person didn't really read it carefully, or that they didn't understand something. So if you have concerns that maybe a comment is unnecessary, mark it and schedule a meeting to discuss it with that person. Because most comments are a sentence or two, and that, of course, and they're presented in the form of either an email, or maybe they've attached a comment to a Word document or a Google Doc, but that doesn't provide a level of nuance and understanding that face-to-face communication will provide. So thinking about that as you move on to persevere and keep forward. And now let's talk about stress. I mean, I've been talking about it because that is the big thing that we're all worried about. It's stressful. It can be a major stressor. And if you've got anything else that's going on in your life that's stressful, that compounds the stress exponentially. It's easy to say, hey, stay engaged with your study. That will reduce your stress. To an extent, it will. But sometimes we don't know the amount of stress response we're going to have to something until we have that response. And so stress relief is something that we need to, in general, we should probably think about stress relief. One, I've mentioned a few things already. Scheduling working hours for yourself and keeping those working hours, but also only working within those working hours. Why? Because work and life need to be in balance. It's a buzzword. We love to talk about it. Corporations and business insiders love to throw it around as work-life balance. Here's what the numbers say. And it's hard to find it. But taking breaks, and I don't mean, oh, I took a 20-minute break and I wrote for 16 hours. Set up a writing schedule. Nonfiction author Stephen King only writes from 8 a.m. until 3 p.m. He said that in numerous interviews. 8 to 3, but he does nothing but write, take bathroom breaks, and take food breaks. Ursula K. Le Guin, another novelist, has said, She starts work at 8 a.m. on her writing, and by noon for the day, she stops. And then she goes and she takes a walk. But choosing working hours, taking meaningful breaks, like I mentioned, not responding to emails after 5 p.m. on weekdays and at all on weekends, taking breaks to just do other things that you enjoy, whether it be spending time alone in nature, whether it be going to art museums, concerts, spending time with your friends, with your family, trivia on Tuesday nights, pool or billiards for those of us who grew up in Europe on Thursday nights, having a nice dinner out at a fancy restaurant, exercising, playing video games, reading books that are just fictional. I know you're in grad school and it's hard to read for pleasure, but books, short stories, web comics, comic books, binging your favorite Netflix show, finding that comfort show to watch that just relaxes and de-stresses you. Meditation. For some, it may be a spiritual practice. There may be a spiritual practice. Finding these productive, non-destructive stress relief strategies. Therapy. These things can help reduce stress. They won't eliminate the stress, but they will help make it manageable. And so that is something that we really, really do need to think about. And so let's talk about some pro tips before we end up. Keep track of all of your references early and throughout the process. Keep a running annotated bibliography of potential sources and of sources you've actually used in your writing. If you can, have 2 monitors. So you can have, say, the PDF of a journal article that you're quoting and your Word document that you're writing on or that you're taking notes in. Learn your tools. Understanding how, whether it be a specific software program, SPSS, MaxQDA, In Vivo, learning what you can do with it, learning how to do it can help save time and can help reduce stress. The search function is always your friend in large documents because it can help you find things easier. Google Scholar is a friend. Google Scholar became super useful and popular after I finished my dissertation, so I'm not as familiar with it as others are, but hey, free access to abstracts and some current articles is great. Use all of the resources available to you. If you're at a school that has a student health center that you can at least get triage and screenings for, do that. If your school has a rec center that you can get exercise in, make use of that. Make use of the library databases, the resources from your committee. They are a resource. Make use of the support, whether it be physical health, mental health, emotional health, support for how to use software, support for doing research. Maybe your department has a grad student writing group or a research group for those who are struggling with a particular method. Look into these things and see if there is one. If you don't know something, look it up. If you don't know where to find it, ask. A lot of people can help, but if they don't know you need the help, they can't provide it. The worst you can do when you look something up is find that nothing exists. The worst that can happen when you ask is for someone to say no or I don't know. But you won't know if you don't seek it out. So these are some pro tips, but really surviving the dissertation comes down to recognizing it is a marathon and it is not a sprint. So if you are someone who does any type of running, you know that you train for distance running in a different way than you would train for short-term running. With a marathon, you're not going to run full speed the whole time. You need to pace yourself. And a dissertation is no different. You need to pace yourself. That's the key. Setting up a schedule, knowing how long things might take, being familiar with the expectations, the guidelines from your school, from your department, knowing what goes in each section, understanding that, being able to have a professional working relationship with your chair, being able to manage your time, being able to manage your stress. These are all things that go into survival. There isn't a single magical life hack that gets all of this done, but the big hack is in if you plan early, you have room to alter those plans as you move along. Planning and then consistency are the key. Life happens, guys. We want you to survive this. We want you to be able to come out on top. But you have to recognize that this is a long-term process. And if you're in it, you probably already know just how much work this is. And it takes a lot. It's stressful, it's time-consuming, and it's daunting. But you can do it. All of us who have done it want to see you succeed, because you doing that, you succeeding, brings new knowledge, new ideas, and new life into the fields, into the areas of study that we know and love. And your knowledge may not change and fix the world, but it can help other people. It can make others' life better. With that said, as we wrap up, I do want to point out that Statistics Solutions is a full-service dissertation consulting company that provides graduate students with timely editorial support for their dissertations and other scholarly projects. I myself primarily work with qualitative results and methodology, but I also can help with other areas of a qualitative dissertation. If you would like to inquire about our services, you can receive a complimentary 30-minute consultation Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern American Time. Please contact Janine Glace at her email is right there, Janine@statisticsolutions.com, and she will be more than able to help direct you to the people who can provide you with the assistance you need, what level of support that you might need from us, and how best to go about that. Oh, thank you, Marlon. I'm so glad that you felt that way. I do hope that this was helpful for everyone. I know I don't know all of your situations, and in an hour we don't have that much time, but we do have 7 minutes remaining. So if anyone else has any questions, I would be more than happy to answer them now. Okay, while I wait for someone to see if anyone types, do remember you are not alone. The stressful feelings you may have at any point in the dissertation process are normal. Please do not ever feel like you are the only one who is finding this challenging. It is a very challenging process, but with the proper information and with proper planning, you can properly execute and see this project through to a successful completion. Okay. I will give a few seconds more for questions, but we are about out of time. Again, thank you for joining us. This will be emailed to you, so you have it for future viewing and listening. But should you have questions later, I know sometimes questions don't pop up, or you're scared to ask, or you have a question but you don't know how to word it and you think of it later. Questions can easily be forwarded if you email our company. They will be forwarded to me, and I will endeavor to respond to you within 1 business day. So with that said, I do think we have reached the end of our time together, but thank you everyone who joined us. It was lovely being able to at least speak with you on this front. So I do hope that you have a lovely weekend, and I wish you all success in your dissertation and your future endeavors beyond that. My name is Joanna Broussard, so you will be able to see that. Let me type it in so that way you can see that my name is Dr. Johanna Broussard. There we go. So this is me. I'm easy to find when you email the company. Should you wish to use our services, we're more than happy, more than capable, and we are really darn good at helping. So whatever level of help you need, from project conception all the way through help dealing with data analysis, editing, and things of that nature. So when you contact Janine, she will be able to direct you to the appropriate specialists. And even if you don't, I hope you will work with us, but if you don't, may your dissertation be successful, and may you be happy and satisfied with the process. Have a lovely weekend, and I wish you all the success in the future. Bye-bye.